Hello, everybody. I'm Stacy Dynamke with Nutrition Jobs. And today on our LinkedIn Live, we have a super exciting guest. We have Pamela Malo. Pamela is a dietitian that I've known via the internet for years. And she was also a featured dietitian career spotlight on Nutrition Jobs quite a while ago. Pamela has really reinvented some really fabulous information and is going to share that with us today. She has a new business. She'll tell you all about it. But essentially, she is going to help all of us dietitians rise and be able to find our career sweet spot and our North Star. And so I want to introduce Pamela Malo. Welcome, Pamela.
Thank you so much, Stacey. I'm so excited to be here,
Yeah.
and I appreciate all of the work that you do in our field to educate dietitians and future dietitians about what's possible in the working world and in so many ways. So you're truly an inspiration. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, no, there's so much to do for our profession, and it's great to have people helping guide each other so that we are all, as Orly Wachter says, like a rising tide lifts all ships, all dietitians. So that, with that in mind, I'm going to advance your slides and have you share with us a really, really important topic, and that is how to embrace imperfection as a dietitian. And you're going to give us some amazing tools, some strategies to both identify, but also to conquer and embrace it, essentially. So I'm going to move to the next slide for you here. This is Pamela. And then here you go. Tell us a little
Okay.
bit about what you've got.
Awesome. Well, I love this cartoon. I use it a lot when I speak to interns about this topic because it's so relatable. I think that as dietitians, we tend to not be the ones to pat ourselves on the back when we do something well, but when we make even the smallest mistake, we can sort of catastrophize it. And this is pretty common. It's one of the traits of someone who is living with perfectionism. And I love talking about this because it's something that we all often struggle with, but don't always have conversations around. So it's sort of like the secret struggle sometimes. And by bringing it out, bringing a little humor into this topic, we can realize that it's actually something that many of us, if not all of us, are dealing with. We can go to the next slide. So, as a dietitian, we tend to be people who we love helping others. We really value health and nutrition. We want to make a difference in the world. And all of that also comes with this sort of very high standard that we set for ourselves. And this concept of imposter syndrome, which has become very popular lately, actually was a term that was coined in the 1970s by studying very successful women lawyers. And they found that this group of women who had no need to really doubt themselves or their abilities, they were doing extremely well in their careers, had a tendency to think that they weren't worthy or valuable, or that someone was going to find out that they weren't actually as smart or as talented as others thought that they were. And this legacy actually makes a lot of sense. If you look historically, it was not that long ago that women weren't even in the workplace. And even in the 1920s, for example, when we got the right to vote, a woman could still lose her citizenship if she married someone from another country. And in the 1970s, we still couldn't have credit cards without our husband's permission. So all of these things are playing a factor, whether or not we're conscious of them or not. So when we step into the workforce, this actually is a very, in some ways, countercultural thing if you look at the long arc of history. So it makes sense that we want to sort of protect ourselves from the criticism that can come from that. And research has also shown that women are much more likely to be critiqued in ways that their male counterparts aren't. So perfectionism I think, is something that developed and evolved as a way to really help us to try to avoid some of that discomfort when it comes to being in this new environment.
That's great. I was going to make one quick point in here that I think there's been a lot of interest in dietitians in particular, like you isolated out as well, that dietitians in particular suffer from a lot of the imposter phenomenon. And there's an article that we have on our site where we reference a few dietitians who are involved in this and have researched it. And it's true, like dietitians, like a good percentage of dietitians do suffer from imposter phenomenon.
Yes. And what's ironic is that, okay, I could be biased as a dietitian, but I truly believe that we have the best nutrition training in the world. No one else goes through the years and years that we have. So, yes. And, it kind of goes hand in hand. High achieving women do often have this. And I think that as dietitians, we fall quite into that category. So, yeah. Okay, so you can flip to the next slide.
Oh, there it is.
So, whether you call it perfectionism, imposter syndrome, fixed mindset, all of these things can be used to talk about what we are discussing today. One thing I've noticed though is sometimes the advice can be along the lines of, oh, well, just fake it till you make it. Or, what else have I heard? Just begin before you're ready. And when I hear these things, I'm like, okay, but how do I actually do that? I need something more tangible, more in the immediate realm of what that actually looks like in any given situation. Because if I'm overrun with fear for taking a step in a new direction, someone just saying start before you're ready, like that's for me not enough. And so what I have come to lean on the most is looking at this through the lens of the inner critic. And the inner critic, so sorry. The inner critic is really something that every single person on the planet has, because this is a part of our safety instinct. This is how we have evolved and stayed alive through the millennia. And basically, one way to think about this is as it is a guard on the edge of our safety zone. And anytime that we are about to leave this sort of comfort area, the guard wakes up and it does anything in its power to keep us where we already are, in our safe, little, comfortable, habitual place. And so as we learn skills to begin to recognize this and not to try to fight it or kill it. We can't get rid of our inner critic, but we can learn to engage with it in a different way. We can grow the skills that help to build our courage and our confidence and to loosen the grip of perfectionism and thinking that we are imposters and move us from a fixed into a growth mindset. So I want to share with you some signs of how to know if your inner critic is speaking. So the first one is the inner critic tends to be very harsh and very judgmental. It will say things to us that we would never say to someone who we cared about. So that's definitely one sign. A second sign is that our critic will then beat us up for beating ourselves up. So maybe the original criticism is, oh, I can't believe I got this bad grade on a paper. Then the inner critic will pop up and say, who goes through all the effort to get into a program and then not even do well in it? So it's sort of this 1-2 punch where we beat ourselves up for beating ourselves up. A third thing is that the inner critic tends to sound like a broken record. And this is one of the reasons that we don't always catch it, because it repeats itself so often that we think what it's saying is true. And whether this is about our intelligence or our personality or our ability to succeed or our body appearance, it's another place that the inner critic can perk up a lot. It just is the same thing over and over and over again. Another thing that the inner critic loves to tell us is to wait. Just, you're not quite ready. Go get some more training, take another class, talk to more people. Don't begin because you could actually be more prepared. And this is another way that we might think that we're being wise, but actually our inner critic is leading us astray. Again, it wants to just keep us into that comfort zone. And the inner critic, lastly, loves black and white thinking. So it's either you're great or you're awesome, you're beautiful or you're ugly, you're going to win or you're totally going to fail and bomb. There is no gray when it comes to the inner critic. And this is a topic I've been studying for almost a decade. And many of the things I'm sharing with you are from one of my teachers and mentors, Tara Moore, who has done a lot of extensive research on this topic. And next, I want to share with you a little bit about my inner critic. These are things that I found 10 years ago, shortly after I became a dietitian, that my inner critic was saying to me. And I like to share these. You can read them on the screen because, again, these are the things that I think dietitians beat themselves up for. We expect ourselves to never go to a fast food restaurant, to remember every single thing that we ever learned in every single biochem and, community food service nutrition class. And then we end up feeling really badly about ourselves. So this is not, I wouldn't say I identify with all of these, most of these anymore, but I think that it's really powerful to share them because they can be so easily relatable. So next, Stacy, if you are interested, I wanted to do a little exercise, and anyone else who's listening can follow along and do this as well. One thing that can be helpful is to kind of get to know our critics a little bit more. And so I would invite you to think about a time where your inner critic had something critical to say to you. You don't have to share with us what it is, but just try to remember the moment and the actual words that they shared with you.
Okay, so yeah, this is interesting. So I think for me, so I send out a weekly newsletter to thousands and thousands and thousands of people. It is written from my voice because I write it. I sit there every time after I have written it. I have no problem writing it. I always have a problem sending it. I sit there with it and think, oh, who are you? So for example, this past week I wrote an article about a made up term for a dietitian. It was called longevity nutritionist or longevity dietitian. And I thought, oh gosh, don't send this because someone else probably really has this title. You're infringing upon their trademark by talking about it. This is a silly idea. That's another thought. Nobody's going to open this email or listen to what I have to say. So that's an example that just comes to mind about this critic that comes up weekly.
Yes, yes. Oh, that's such a great example and so relatable in so many levels. So when you think about these things that they're saying, this critic is saying to you, does the voice sound more like an older person or a younger person?
Let's see. I would say the voice sounds like it coming from maybe a place of authority, like maybe a governing body or maybe more successful dietitians looking down on me, and I am like this little kid dietitian. Like that's sort of how it feels. Like, did you check with legal? Did you check with the comedy crew? Did you check with the content people? Like, did you check with marketing? Did you check all the boxes? Because you're going to send this out to a lot of people. that's sort of like the management, of course I am the manager, but the management up there, the imaginary management up there is getting ready to put me on suspension.
Yes. Oh, that's so great. So it sounds very authoritarian. It sounds very kind of condescending. And would you say that if you were just to kind of imagine, flesh this out a little bit more, does this sort of person, what kind of car would they drive?
Oh, gosh, what kind of car? I can't see a car. Let me think. They're probably driving. I don't know because because I live in San Francisco, and so there's like different. Everybody here is driving an electric car. So
Okay.
and mine isn't there yet. So I would just think that anybody who's got a newer car, this is like, it was funny that you would say that, because we had this ongoing joke in our family that mom needs to get a new car. And I have no interest in shopping. I have no interest in doing it. If it lands in my driveway, that'd be great. And so it's anybody who has a new car.
Okay, so this critic has probably the latest car and is looking
On
at
the
you
ball
being
with
like,
shopping, yes.
oh my gosh, this email and your car, like, what are you thinking? Um, and then a couple of adjectives that you could, extra adjectives that you might flesh it out to describe this voice and this person.
I would say, well, they're female. They are somebody who maybe has a position in the academy. Maybe I love the academy, but maybe it's somebody within the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics. Maybe it's the one of the delegates. Maybe it's somebody from who's been around for a while, who knows. Even though I've been practicing for 30 years, it's somebody probably in my own cohort of professionals, but it feels like somebody who's just more authoritative.
Okay, has a leg up and got it. Yes. And if they weren't someone from real life, if it was more of like this, a fictional character from literature or film who's like authoritarian and condescending and female, does anyone come to mind?
Oh, for sure. I'm thinking right now, as you're saying that, in the book, Roald Dahl's Matilda, um, what's Mrs. Turnbull? Is that the name of the teacher?
Oh, my gosh, it's been a while, but
I could
yeah.
Google them while we're talking, but yeah, somebody with authority, but maybe I can see some flaws in them, and maybe some old fashionedness about them, because as you know, Pamela, like my emails are very quirky. They're not meant to be part of the Journal of the American Dietetic Association. They're very quirky. So
Yes, they fit your style, not this critic style. Yeah, absolutely. Well, great, good job. So we'll call your critic, what was it, Mrs. Tittle
Turnbull, I think her name
Turnbull?
is. I'm gonna look it
Okay,
up as we're, yeah.
all right. So as you do that, I'll just reiterate. So these are the kinds of questions that you want to get curious about when you think about these things that you are hearing coming from your own mind. Who is this voice? Can you flesh out a little bit of a character that helps you create some space and some distance between you and this part of you that is saying these things to you? Because what tends to happen is we just take it on as if it's the truth from God itself, or from, the all being knowing universe, and we don't tend to question it. So when we start to flesh out this character, it's the very first step in putting a little bit of space between us and this voice. And so next I want to share with you some tips that you can use to quiet this voice. Again, we can't kill it, we can't get rid of it, but we can control its volume and choose if we're going to take direction from it. So the first thing is to put these three words in front of anything that you hear this critic say, and that is, my critic says. So that might be, my critic says no one's going to read this email. My critic says you didn't check off all the boxes. My critic says, who are you to send this? Etc., etc., etc. So if you were to do this, Stacy, can you sense or feel a difference by adding those three words?
Certainly helps. That sort of clears it up. It compartmentalizes, I think.
Yes, exactly. Another thing that we can do is think about how these things land and feel in our body, because sometimes it might register physically before we catch the actual words crossing through our mind. So maybe when our critic is talking, we tend to have, some tension in our shoulders, or our belly feels uncomfortable. And again, this can take some time to develop, or you may tap into it naturally and realize that again, the mind-body connection. A third technique that you can do is to send your critic on a trip. So you can thank this critic. Thank you. I'm sorry, Miss, what is again?
I'm looking to see. I don't think it's Ms. Turnbull. I think that's the headmaster. We'll just call her Ms. Turnbull
We'll
anyway.
call her Miss Turnbull. Okay. Thank you, Miss Turnbull. I know you were trying to help me here, but I've just got you a ticket and you can go on a cruise to Alaska and enjoy the sights and scenery down there. It sounds silly, but even if you stand up and open the door and make space for her or him to leave, it really can shift the energy internally. A fourth technique is to simply take several deep breaths. We know physiologically that this is one of the fastest way to switch the nervous system from sympathetic dominance to parasympathetic dominance. So from fight and flight to rest and relaxation. And the inner critic is definitely more associated with that fight or flight part of ourselves. And lastly, this is sort of a silly one, but you can imagine whatever the critic is saying to you, these words in a thought bubble above your head, and then allow it to go poof, and then all the words and letters just fall down to the ground. So some things to try at home whenever you would like.
I love those. Those are really helpful.
Oh, good. And again, I always think it's helpful to remind yourself to treat yourself as you would treat a good friend. And that leads us into the next topic, which is after we spend so much time with our critic, it's also helpful to realize that we have some positive, supportive, wise, and kind voices as well. And this could be called different things. It could be called your future self, the inner wisdom, your inner mentor. And so as we turn down the volume on the inner critic, we can also begin to get in touch with this voice as well. And it's actually a guided visualization. We won't do that today, but that guides people through in a very relaxed state to connecting with this part of themselves. And again, we come up with a name and a character, and then we have these sort of balancing forces that we can become aware of and tune into the one that we want to spend more time with.
That's good.
So when it comes to dietitians, where this could be useful, I hear a lot of, especially new RDs, feeling uncomfortable sharing their thoughts and ideas in a medical staff meeting or speaking up with physicians. And so if you have a critic who is telling you, who are you? You're going to look stupid. Don't do this. That's going to make it incredibly hard to do it. But likely there's another part of you the part of you that wants to speak up, that is going to, if you can tune into that and connect with your inner mentor and the strength and the power in that, you can navigate that with a little bit more ease. It takes practice, but sometimes this can happen also in the blink of an eye, just by choosing the intention to turn down the critic and turn up a kinder, wiser part of yourself. Again, presenting or doing anything novel is going to incite that inner critic. So if you aren't so tethered to what it has to say, you can break free from that. Again, sharing your ideas with a wider circle, email list, blog, going on TV, or even social media. We all have our areas where we feel more and less comfortable. And so just notice that and realize that whatever your critic is saying is not the truth that you have to listen to. Again, writing a book, questioning the status quo, these are all things, or even applying to jobs. The inner critic can definitely come up. And this is something also very important for women. And I just speak about women because 95% of our field is made of women. Is that women tend to only apply to jobs where they are 100% qualified. And men, on the other hand, I think the statistic is 50 or 60%.
Yeah,
So
like
we
50%,
could,
yeah.
we would benefit ourselves and our profession to just stretch and to, apply for things, even if we don't meet everything, because it will be helpful for ourselves, our career, helps to grow confidence, and you live through that. Even if you don't get the job, you can choose to not make it mean anything horrible about yourself. So I do have a course I'll be starting if anybody wants to join and do a deeper dive and learn more about your inner critic and inner mentor. You can jump over to this URL here. And also, I teach workshops to dietetic interns and nutrition students, and I will be doing a live workshop on December 20th if anybody would like to join. These are really fun. I share about my very windy story as a dietitian, doing everything from setting up a nutrition program in Peru to 10 years traveling the country on Ann Haynes to private practice to politics. And then I also showcase dozens of dietitians who have chosen to do really fun, non-traditional things. And also we do a very personal, fun exercise about finding your core nutrients. And once you know these things, you can use them and when applying for jobs or internships or really just navigating your day-to-day life. It's a very grounding tool to have.
Pamela, I love that you have a workshop for this specifically because I think it's great to take someone out of their head and out of that potentially negative space or critical space and move it out. And you can hear other people, you can hear what they're struggling with, what they're succeeding with, and getting some direction from you. I think it's such a great idea to have this as an option. So thank you for that. Was again December the 20th.
Yes.
If you're watching this after the 20th, you can still connect with Pamela and we'll show you how to do that and see what she has upcoming workshops and events too.
Yes, absolutely. Here is my phone number. I make myself highly available for text and phone chats. Email always works. LinkedIn, and I am on Instagram under Northstar_careers and Northstar_nutrition. So I'm in the middle of a name change, and I'm really excited about that. So
That's a great way. Thank you for including all of that information. I'll put this in the notes as well so that they can
Okay.
find you there too. Thank you so much, Pamela.
Sounds great. Thank you, Stacy.
Yeah, let me just for everybody who might be interested in pursuing more ways to optimize their opportunities for nutrition or dietetic jobs. We've got a few different events. I've got my instant makeover workshop that's upcoming in January 2022, and we'll talk about your resume, LinkedIn profile. We'll also go over some interview strategies. And then, of course, we've got the Dietetic Resume Essentials course, and we've got the LinkedIn course to get an all-star LinkedIn profile fully optimized as a healthcare worker. And of course, I've always got the dietetic resume template downloads as Canva downloads so that you can enter all that information. It's all pre-filled, so you can just plug in your information and have a resume that is magnetic to recruiters and it has on there what they want to see. So again, January is the workshop. I also want to make sure that you all know to head on over to nutritionjobs.com, and on the right nav bar there is a way to download the LinkedIn checklist that we have there for you. So make sure you do that. It is also included in the link in my bio in Nutrition Jobs on Instagram. So there's 2 locations for it. I hope you can do that and get your profile super optimized. On YouTube here, make sure you subscribe and hit the little bell to get notifications of when we upload new videos. We've always got lots of videos and descriptions of those videos included in there to optimize your job and your career opportunities as dietitians, dietitians to be, DTRs, all kinds of people in the world of nutrition and health. And go over to Nutrition Jobs. We've got lots of blog articles, resources over there. You can post your resume and of course search for jobs. And again, here's Pamela's information. Make sure you do connect with Pamela. Make sure you connect with her on LinkedIn too and just say hello, say thanks for the presentation. That's a great way to create a bond and create a networking connection there too. And this is how you connect with me. Thank you so much for joining us today. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Stacy.
Thank you.